Anyone have any questions before we get
Safety presentation today? Members are Chris Weber, Tim Gavinsky, Lance Zarowski, and myself, Pete Bolger. Okay, we handed something out to everyone today that everyone uses every day. It's something that comes through your hands all the time. You buy things with pennies. You get them as change. When you go out to Walmart, you buy something, they're coming through your hands all the time. You've always got them. You might save them. Some people put them in big jugs. They throw them all in a big jug and they save them up. They've always got big tons of them. And you might even use them for scratching off lottery tickets for the big winner. How good do you pay attention to detail though? You have those pennies come through your hands all the time, and there's a lot of things on there, but because you've got them all the time, you don't really pay attention to some details. If you look real close at them, there's a ridge around the edges on both sides, and it's something you don't realize. Even though you might have seen it one time, but you don't pay attention every time you use it. If you turn it over to the tail side and look at the Lincoln Memorial, if you look real close, you can see Lincoln within that memorial. Once again, it's a detail that's on there, and you don't realize it because you use them every day, and you're so used to having them, and you don't pay attention to the detail. If someone gave you a copper piece, you wouldn't even realize that it wasn't the Lincoln Memorial with Lincoln in it. It even has some Latin writing on it. It says E pluribus unum, which means from many to one. Once again, it's another detail that you just don't notice. Now you're probably wondering, why are you talking about pennies when you're doing a computer safety presentation? Well, I'm going to explain it. Pennies are something that are accepted by society now, and everybody has them come in and out of their hands. So once again, you just don't pay attention to those details. They're common to everyone, and they're used every day by everyone. Once again, you're wondering how this pertains to computers, and we found that nearly 3/4 of our survey, the people surveyed, use computers at least 1 hour per day, with 1/4 of the people surveyed using them 3 or more hours per day. So much like the pennies coming in and out of your hands, you're using the computer every day, and you're not paying attention to the details. You don't realize that when you're using repetitive motions, when you're typing on the keyboard, that you might be damaging your wrist by twisting your wrist a certain way. You don't realize that as you sit in front of that computer, there's actually radiation coming out of that computer that are coming into your body and affecting the tissues in your body. You don't realize the eye strain which you might be experiencing from dim lighting in the room when you're using a computer. And you don't realize the back strain from sitting in front of a computer for long hours, doing tedious work in maybe an uncomfortable chair, or from sitting up straight from the desk being at an uneven height. And it's a concern that everyone must worry about, because much like the pennies going through your hands, you use computers every day and you don't pay attention to those details. And now Chris Weber is going to present conducting the survey.
Sample of the survey format that we had. The survey was administered on a one-to-one, face-to-face basis, and there were a few exceptions with people that were out of the area. They were contacted by phone, but otherwise it was a one-to-one, face-to-face basis. The questions were all formatted, with the exception of 2, as closed-ended questions, and the reasons for this was to keep the survey short and to make our data tabulations all very easy and simple and easy to analyze. There was one open-ended question, and that was formatted that way just because it was requiring personal responses, which would be too numerous to cover in closed-ended questions. The composition of the surveyed population consisted of friends, fellow students, co-workers, teachers, parents, and even some McGraw Labs student users. So the population was pretty wide and varied. The first two questions served to sample our population as to their age and sex. The third question tried to separate computer owners from computer non-owners, and the reason for this is that the computer owner usually has a little bit more freedom and flexibility in selecting his own safety equipment and other auxiliary devices than the non-computer owner does. The fourth question is worded as, how many hours do you use computers per day? Well, that's really just trying to determine hazard exposure, because as Keith mentioned, there's could be radiation coming from your computer, so it's a hazard that you're being exposed to for up to 8, 9, 10 hours a day. The next three questions all collected information on problems with the wrists and hands, and the use of special devices to protect the wrists, and people's general faith in how well these things are going to protect them, mainly with if they were going to use them or not. Following three questions collected information on eye strain from computer use, any eye strain history, special eye strain reducing equipment that may have been used, such as different screens and different attachments to your monitor, and the attitudes towards special equipment. Questions 11 through 13 collected information on back injuries from computer use, such as back strain from improper seating position, and another cause of back strain, which is improper keyboard height. The next five questions all collected information on extremely low frequency radiation fields. They sampled people's concerns with these emissions, the knowledge of what these emissions are and how they affect the human body's tissues. And the frequency of usage of low ELF monitors and the willingness to pay more for low ELF monitors. The final four questions consisted of two closed-end questions which sampled the usage of campus computer labs and the attitudes regarding campus efforts to produce a safe computer working environment. There was an open-ended response if there wasn't a lab that listed on the overhead, if that wasn't covered, it could be filled in. And the final question just polled those who thought that the university didn't provide a safe computing environment as to make recommendations as to what might be done to improve the situation. The survey closed with just thanking the respondents for the time in completing the survey. And now for a breakdown of all the data that we did find, Tim's going to have some interesting graphs for you showing all that.
As Chris has already mentioned, the surveys were distributed to coworkers, friends, family members, others around campus, and people in McGraw Computer Lab. We came up about a 50-50 distribution as far as male-female. We distributed them to 53 males and 47 females, which was basically random. And we thought that was a pretty even distribution. From a statistical standpoint, our surveys focused on wrist, eye, and back injuries and the percentage of people that had them from continued computer usage. You see here, 53% of the people we surveyed said they had wrist problems at some point in their life from using a computer for a long time. This doesn't seem like that significant of a number, just 53%. But if you look at it, it's 1 out of every 2 people that we surveyed have had wrist problem at some point in their life. That's a problem that should be looked at, seeing that one of the worst wrist problems that you can have is carpal tunnel disease, which is a disease that requires surgery often to correct. This disease you can get from repetitive motion with your wrist, twisting your wrist, things like that. It's probably unlikely that the people that said that they had wrist problems in our survey had carpal tunnel disease. Maybe none of them did. Most of them probably, there's just strains in their muscles or a tightening of their wrists, which you can just kind of sit back, shake your wrists off, or take a break, and everything will be okay. A greater percentage of people that we surveyed suffered eye and back strain. As you can see here, people we surveyed, 71% of the people said they had eye strain or headaches when using computers for a continued period. This is normally like looking at a computer screen too long, or really anything up close you look at too long. When you get up, you look away at a long distance, it takes a while for your eyes to adjust, and that continued adjusting often can cause headaches or eye strain. Often insufficient lighting also will have a strain on your eyes. Our survey also indicated that 70% of the people that we surveyed had back strain at some point in their lives. This could be because of poor posture, an uncomfortable chair, and improper keyboard height. Also, something that wasn't included on our survey that we got feedback from was a lot of people that had back strain also had neck strain from just having your neck so stiff for a long period of time. We also surveyed the knowledge of radiation, computer-related radiation. The question that we asked in particular was, do you have knowledge of ELF or extremely low frequency radiation? 34% said they were knowledgeable, which we think is kind of a low number. Seeing how important the radiation is, a lot of people should know what it is and how it affects your body. And Lance will get into more of that in a second. These are all significant numbers and should be looked at closely by those who use computers on a continual basis. There are ways to prevent these injuries, and to tell you more about that, I'll hand over to Lance.
In the survey, we got that most of the people that took it experienced some sort of wrist problem, eye strain, back problems, and had questions about what extremely low frequencies were. As you can see, this guy up here has got incorrect wrist position. Some things that can cause some wrist problems are the height of your keyboard can be in the wrong place. You cannot be using an ergonomic keyboard, not exercising, and working for long periods of time at your computer. But in order to stop wrist problems, it's important to have your computer keyboard set at a proper height. If possible, buy an ergonomic keyboard. Sometimes these get to be a bit expensive, but in the long run it might be worth it. Take breaks regularly and always exercise. Eye strain is caused by a few consistent factors, which are usually sitting too close to your computer for too long of a period of time and having the contrast set way too high. There are things you can do to avoid eye strain, which is don't sit so close to your computer. You should try to keep your eyes about at least 16 inches away from the screen. Take regular breaks and make sure the contrast is at a comfortable level. I've seen some people set the contrast so high that it looks blurry to me. I don't know why. They can see better that way, but who knows. Next, back problems. Almost everyone's experienced back problems at one time or another when using their computer. It's mainly from sitting improperly, or sitting in an uncomfortable chair, and sitting for too long of a period of time. Now there are ways you can avoid back problems, and that is when you sit, always keep an arch in your back. If possible, buy an ergonomic chair. Sometimes these get to be a bit pricey too, but you can make your own ergonomic chair by just simply taking a little pillow or something and putting it in the arch of your back, and when you sit down, it'll force you to have an arch in your back. Take breaks often, and it's very important to exercise your back. Many of the people that took our survey had questions about what extremely low frequencies were. Now, what they are magnetic fields that can pass through just about anything. And then they can disrupt your intracellular activity and hormonal secretions. And many scientists have linked extremely low frequencies to certain types of cancer. But there are ways to limit your contact with extremely low frequencies. What you do is you can get a screen filter. Some people don't like these though because they cause your screen to be a little bit darker. So it's almost like you're looking at it through sunglasses. But if it's protecting you from radiation, I don't really see the problem with it. Take breaks often and just don't look too closely at your computer screen. And in conclusion, I would like to say some of these things that I've talked about are somewhat common knowledge and others aren't. But if you follow some of the strategies I've talked about, you'll be able to use your computer for a long time without any unnecessary and frustrating injuries. Now, are there any questions at this time?
When you say buying like ergonomically correct chairs and computers and stuff like that, when you said pricey, how pricey is that compared to keyboard cost?
Well, a normal keyboard is probably around, I don't know, $25, $30. And some of the ergonomic ones I've seen prices for around $80 for the ones that you can are shaped in cubes or ones that are all wavy and have the keys out like here and here.
What is carpal tunnel disease? I didn't understand what that was.
Okay. Carpal tunnel disease is when the median nerve in your wrist gets inflamed, and then there's muscles that goes through median nerve up to about here. Then the muscles inflame around it and cause you to have pain. You can wake up in the middle of the night with it. If you automatically just drop things and you're not sure why, that's always a sign of carpal tunnel. But most people end up having to have surgery if they don't catch it quick enough.
Just exactly how clear is the connection between extremely low frequency radiation from the computer and cancer? Is that sort of a fringe statistical item, or is it a very common occurrence, say on a par with cancer from cigarette smoke?
I can feel that one. Right now, the jury is out in a big way about the effects of extremely low frequency radiation. There seems to be some link between ELF emissions and cancer, but it's been, so far, it's been very, very difficult to prove. If there is any kind of hazard from it, or it's going to be from long-term exposure. And there presently haven't been enough people probably that have been staring into computer monitors for long enough and have gotten old enough to develop this kind of a chronic disease, like such as brain cancers and things like that. But you have to know that the electromagnetic waves that come from the monitor, they do pass through just about anything, but as they do, they deposit some of their energy into the structures that they pass through. And some of those things are going to be obviously the cells in your body that are directly in front of the computer. And as they do that, they can alter the genetic structure of the cells just slightly. And there's a chance, small chance, but there's a chance that they can just start reproducing wildly when you have your cancers. So in response to your question, there's really no hard fact that sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours, you're going to have brain cancer when you retire, but it's a possibility. And a lot of the protective equipment that they have that shields monitors from those kind of radiations, maybe around $100 or so. So you just kind of ask yourself, is it worth $100 to gamble on not having a terrible cancer?
I was wondering, do you know if these shields, do they absorb the radiation or do they scatter it off of it?
They absorb it. Yeah, they do absorb it. Some of them go on the back of the cathode ray tube, so you have to disassemble the monitor and put that inside. And if you can think of it kind of like a parabolic mirror or something like that, it just keeps them inside and keeps them, reflecting around inside instead of scattering them off to the side. So they do absorb them. So if you're in say a data entry room with 50 terminals or whatever, you're not going to be radiating your partners. It'll all be contained.
When you have the carpal tunnel surgery, is there a high success rate after that? Because I've heard of a few people who have had surgery and it really didn't help them. And have you heard of cases where it significantly helped them after the surgery? Or
Most people say they do maintain, they are able to use their hands again, but they're never up to the strength they were before they were diagnosed with carpal tunnel. So you're better than you were before you had the surgery, but you're probably never going to be 100% again.
You mentioned exercise. Are there specific exercises you should focus on then?
For your wrists? Yeah, you can do, there's wrist curls, reverse wrist curls, mainly just a normal workout schedule is probably your best bet. But just, you know, they got those grip things you can buy at like Walmart or whatever that can help, or just, you know, light weights, just warming them up maybe before you use your keyboard for a long period of time. Something along those lines.
Is the price of this equipment the only reason that the labs on campus haven't adopted?
Not really sure why the labs don't get it. Prices, you know, right now, like we said, some of the research isn't saying one thing or the other, but people basically know that it's not good to be bombarded with radiation and that kind of stuff. So basically, I don't know why the computer places around here don't have it. Maybe there's money, maybe it's not. Maybe they just don't feel like buying it. It's hard to say.
I think we will see a change in that in the near future too, because as more and more people are using computers more and more, I think universities and businesses are going to realize that, well, these are our customers and they're going to go out of their way to spend the extra money to get more ergonomic keyboards and such.
Well, it should be basically right about here when you're sitting. You don't like want to be up here or way down here. Just so your arms are able to be relaxed and still be able to type.
These wrist pads that they have, and I see at computer shows, I believe they promote carpal tunnel because they encourage the student to go like this on their keyboard, and that creates an angle. When you mentioned that exercise was a good way to prevent carpal tunnel syndrome, it's because you have good circulation. It shows you're a healthful type individual, that's going to ward off any illness, just like, well, not only carpal tunnel, but anything, just because you're in good physical condition. And Joy, in regard to your question, since I've taught typing for many, many years, you should have a direct line so you do not bend your wrist. And so it should be not straight out, but slightly up, and then curve your fingers down. I believe people who go like this are also very susceptible to carpal tunnel because they're not relaxed and using their fingers and distributing the workload. They're going like this. Now we're looking unprofessional, but working those two fingers very hard and pounding away versus using a natural approach to keyboard. Any other questions?
Is that ELF radiation a problem only with cathode ray tube monitors, or is it also a problem with crystal skin monitors?
Just CRT. Yeah, it should be just CRT.
So if the industry would switch to liquid crystal, then it would have any potential ELF problem?
Probably. They are coming up with some monitors that also they cancel the electromagnetic radiation using like a wave cancellation. You know, they have an out of phase electromagnetic wave emitted at the same time, which can cancel it. So they get rid of the problem electronically too. Nowadays, low radiation monitors are just about as common as regular monitors. I don't know exactly what the prices are, but I don't believe there's very much different. Whereas liquid crystal displays are probably going to be quite a bit more expensive than the regular CRT for a number of years yet.
Okay.